Hi, good night. Welcome to Boss Lady Live. As usual, we give a few minutes to sign in. Tonight, we are going to be talking about online learning, virtual learning, our new norm. How are the kids managing? You know, does everyone have access to online learning? Does everyone have access to devices? In our economy, how is it working out for the students? Are everyone visual learners? You have different types of learners. How is that going to actually, operate in this climate? Please like and share. Like and share. Please subscribe to the channel to youtube.com/the totally male. We have lots and lots of information on our channel. In a few short moments, we're going to introduce my very special guest tonight, but I'm going to give you a few minutes to come on. I have not seen anybody yet, but we're giving you a few minutes. Good night, Rochelle. How you doing?
I am good. How are you?
I'm just waiting on my folks to sign in.
Yes, I mean, I hear the questions that you throw out in the audience. So,
It's all about learning. I
yeah,
mean, visual learning is one, but people have to seek the knowledge. That's two. You have to seek the knowledge to achieve. I like to talk about achieving our best lives.
yes,
A lot of persons are just existing, and we're not into that. We
yeah.
are about maximizing our best lives, living our
I,
best lives, living happily, living fully,
I,
living our purpose, living on purpose, you know?
I truly agree with that because, in fact, I mean, one of the things that I have on my website, I believe that you should do what you love and love what you do to live a very
Absolutely. And if you do
fulfilling
what you
life.
love, you don't work a day in your life. That
Exactly.
has been my experience.
Yeah,
Don't
love.
understand where's everybody tonight. We're 2 minutes in and I'm still not seeing anybody. And I know it's a very, very touchy topic because this is a everyday, everybody talking about it. I
Yeah,
have no children, but I hear my staff members speaking about, their challenges at school, with not at school, but with the children trying
learning
to
online.
cope and learning online.
I mean,
Yes,
I've heard lots and lots of stories from my friends, my
mhm.
families, and so on. So it's really something that is to talk about. It is a challenge, and it's not
Right,
something that we can just be quiet about or shy away from. It's something that we
right.
have to discuss. And I believe that we have to share our best practices and know what
Right,
works, what doesn't work. I mean, your
right.
situation is unique, so what works for you may not work for me, but at least we
Absolutely.
can share the challenges that we face or solutions to those challenges, and we can all try different
Yes,
approaches.
and I have done a course called a trainer course, and this is something that I did late in life. I had no idea that you had so many different aspects of learning and teaching because people colors mean different things to different people. Um, some people are auditory, some people are visual, all the different, things that go into teaching children, So, all right,
And
so we're just gonna start because I know that apparently they're late tonight. I don't know what's happening tonight, but because normally a lot of persons would have chimed on already, but I'm going to introduce you because
no,
we want to get in all information, Rochelle, because I know for certain, because most persons watch it after. Sometimes they don't have the time to watch it live because they're
yeah,
coming in from work and stuff. But Let me just do my intro
Not a
because
problem.
I know this is a very burning topic for most, um,
For everyone, I don't think
well, everyone who has children.
yeah, leaders, teachers, parents, the children themselves, everyone has questions, everyone has their concerns. So I really believe
Exactly.
this is something for everyone.
Right. So, okay, so tonight, welcome, 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 whoever my one person is so far. So, welcome, welcome, welcome. Tonight, we are speaking on virtual learning. We're learning online in this COVID-19 scenario. There's no more, well, very few persons are face to face at school. So, tonight, our very special guest, and I really like your promo, Rochelle. It's beautiful. First of all, you look fantastic in it.
Thank
And
you.
it says, and I like what you say. So Rochelle is an educator, and she's a science educator. She teaches biology and integrated science at Campion College, and she's also a trainer as well. Am I correct?
Yes, I am.
Right. So he says students are not empty vessels waiting to be filled. Their minds are not static. Learning is an engaging place. Well, my glasses fog up. Oh, is an engaging process that is emergently choreographed where both teachers and students come together as a co evolving and co-adaptive communities. I love that. Learning is dynamic, learning is participatory, and learning is experiential. And that is Care Beyond Reach Academy. Is that a academy that you chair, that you run?
Yes, actually,
Okay, so
well,
first of all, tell us about, because I love how that sounds. So I'm sure many persons will be interested. So just tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, how long you've been teaching, and why did Sandra invite you? Because, when I go to Mr. Henry and Mr. Henry says, I know the right person for you, I don't even have to second guess. But Mr. Henry is always on the ball. So please just give us a little overview of who you are and why you love teaching and why you're even in this field.
okay, good night, everyone. Let me start off by greeting you all. As
And Mr.
Miss,
Henry is online.
yeah, all right,
Yes,
hi, Mr. Henry. Okay, so I truly believe that you should, as we said earlier, love what you do and do what you love.
right.
Teaching is one of those profession that requires a gentle and pure heart. That's for sure. And you cannot go into something without accepting what it is and being that person who's willing to make a difference.
Yes,
So if you're not in it to make a difference, then you really shouldn't be in it.
absolutely.
And I will not apologize for saying that, because we need to prepare the future not for what we currently are experiencing, but for what we would love to experience.
Absolutely.
And Professor Christopher Edmond, Chris Emdin, I don't know if you have ever heard about Chris Emdin,
No,
but I follow him on Instagram. He's a professor, and he's very passionate about education, and he shares some really good things. And as an educator, you have to fulfill yourself. You have to fill your cup before
absolutely.
you try to fill your students' cups.
Hmm.
And I really decided to do
As
teaching.
you said, one cannot pour from an empty vessel, and I truly believe
Not at
that
all.
in
Not at
no
all.
aspect of our lives, whether it's in our career or our personal lives.
You have to work on you. You have to know who you are as a person before you can try to develop another person.
Absolutely.
Because if you are not fully aware of who you are, you cannot guide somebody else's child.
Yeah, right.
And you have to you I believe that you have to have a rooted philosophy what guides your action, what guides your everyday activities, not just your professional life, but your personal life.
Mhm.
You know, everything you do is guided by something. You have a motivation for every action that you do. And
Right.
for me, education was this avenue that I know I could step into and make a difference. I've always wanted to go beyond the classroom, but it starts with the classroom. You can't make an impact unless you go to the root.
Right.
You can't want a tree to grow and you don't water it. You don't provide the nourishment for that tree to grow. And the root starts in the classroom.
Right.
So you have to take it from that point, and from a scientific perspective, for germination to take place, the right environment has to be created. And you have to put the seed in the right place for it to grow. Yes.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
for me, I know I've been planted in education for a purpose, and I am living that purpose, and I'm loving that purpose. And I know it is a calling that I am really 100% ready to take on. And I love children. I have a beautiful daughter of my own, and she amazes me every day, and she reminds me of the importance of being gentle, patient,
Mhm.
all the virtues you could want to tap into for the classroom. Your
Right.
very own children can teach you that. Your
Right.
environment is the classroom. You know, we're all socialized differently, but it doesn't mean we can't come together and make a difference together.
Mhm.
So teaching for me is really a passion, and I really love what I do. And Mr. Henry would have chosen me because I really love what I do, and it shows in my work. I take pride in everything that I
So
do.
you're currently
Professional,
at Campion. You're currently at Campion,
yes, I
and you
am.
also are at Reach Academy.
Right.
And Reach
I am the
Academy
founder
does
of
what?
Caribbean Academy. Right.
Sorry.
So that is really, I have a YouTube channel. We have a YouTube channel
Okay.
and an Instagram page, Caribbean Reach Academy. And what we
Okay.
really want to do is to explore learning on a different level, not necessarily from a rote perspective.
Right.
Because when you step into the classroom, archaic views and ways of teaching, in the sense that students are blank slates, that's not true.
Mhm.
You go to the classroom, your students are there, they have experiences that they can share with you that really lends themselves to be functional in your classroom. So
But
you have to be
mhm.
open minded and allow your students now to pour into you just as much as you would want to pour into your students.
Yes, but Rochelle, I'm gonna be the devil's advocate now. Some people say you have it cushy, man. You upper Campion. Oh, they never struggle up there, so. Not
No,
struggling there, so. Eh?
that is not
Suppose
true.
you want go down let's say you want to go one of those inner city schools now, and you have behavioral issues and children. You say Campion get the cream of the crop, Campion get the brightest and the best, and then parents have money, can buy a laptop and the devices that them need. So you cool. Your bread butter on every side. All the edges them
You know,
butter.
I was not always at Campion.
Okay,
I
so
was
let us
not
hear
always
about
at
that.
Campion, and I can
Yes.
tell you nothing has changed about the way I do things. I wasn't always at Campion. All right. And I have gone to several schools. I have colleagues who work at different schools,
Mhm.
and we communicate, we collaborate nonetheless. So I'm just gonna, you're playing devil's advocate, but I'm just gonna put it right on, hit the nail right on the head. It is
Mhm.
not where you are that matters, it's what you do with what you have and where you are.
Okay.
So we're, don't get me wrong. Yes, where you are can influence a lot of things and how you operate. And
Mhm.
I'm really happy you mentioned that, because primarily what I have to say for any institution, no matter where you are, leadership
Mhm.
is key.
Absolutely.
So it doesn't matter what institution you are a part of, leadership is key. And if
Yes,
you
but
are,
but but in Jamaica,
mhm,
leadership is wonderful, but finances play a huge part. Finances and access,
that is
right?
true.
And so in this time of all right, so before we reach the COVID, because I just want to set it up first before we
Yes.
get to all right. So you have a broad perspective of what it is in terms of our state of education. Where would you say Jamaica is right now in our state of education before we went into COVID?
If you should take it from all angles, primary, early childhood, special education, we're not at our best for sure. That is for sure. Yes, the government has been taking steps to improve our infrastructure, resources, everything that we need to get the job done, but we're not there as yet. And we just have to acknowledge that we are not there as yet. Improvements are
What
happening.
do you think? What do you think? Because we have a platform here that's an international platform. We're on YouTube. What do
Yeah.
you think Jamaica needs to get us to that level? Apart from, because personally, I think, and I've always said it in every chance that I get, I don't think Jamaica's problem is money. I think Jamaica's problem is a lack of will most times. Because if we want to find the money, we can. Because we find the money to do what the things what we want to do. But I think
I was gonna
in
get to that when we spoke
areas,
about
uh,
leadership. And I'm saying I was gonna
leadership,
get to that when we spoke about leadership.
right? Leadership is important, but when I say lack of will, I'm talking about on the part of the parents, on the part of all stakeholders, because you could have lead till a dead if the people who you're leading are not willing and open to what you are trying to achieve. Because we're talking about achieving to the 2030 vision and all of that. But if no, you don't have any buy-in to the 2030 vision, and we still have this mentality of the teacher in the classroom is responsible for everything. You know what I think COVID showed us? The importance of teachers, what teachers been going through. All this time they've been complaining, and it has now showed the loophole or the deficit from the home itself. Because plenty parents bawling, them can't manage, and yet still you hear that the teacher wasn't teaching, and the teacher this and the teacher that. No, in this current climate, we're not even at a crossroads. Many of the students don't even know where to start because the parents can't help because some of them are uneducated. Let us call it what it is. Many of the parents are uneducated and they are expected to monitor the children. Many persons can't monitor the children because them have to work. Many people don't have helper. Many people don't have anybody to stay with the children. So how can we navigate this virtual learning? Whereas
There
we weren't even on top of things from before,
from before COVID.
right? From before COVID, yes.
In in an education system, parental input is very essential. And when you look at the home situation, it says a lot sometimes when the students come to you. And as I said, I was never always at campus. So I know from a different perspective as well,
Right.
right? So if the parents are not able to support the children, not necessarily financially,
Mhm.
but if you give them a task to do, they don't have that supervision to say, okay, I have this homework, or they don't have that discipline, they don't have that home environment that will allow them to settle down and focus because they have other responsibilities
Right.
and not fair to the child. Yes, you can help out with chores and whatever else that your parents would require you to do, but you have to remember that they're children and the parents have to also put in time for the children. So you may not have someone to help the child in terms of a helper. You may not be financially capable of doing that. Yes,
Mhm.
but you have to make the time. If you have a neighbor, for example, where I live, I have friends, I have neighbors who I help their children. So it doesn't require a parent alone. It takes a village to raise a child,
So
right?
so what you're saying in essence is that we really have to go back to the village,
Yeah,
how it
it
was
takes a village
before.
to raise a child. True.
Neighbor supervising, helping to supervise the homework. Hey, we don't people call it carpooling. You know, you carpool to carry children to school. Now you have to house school or neighbor pool.
In your neighborhood, exactly. But even if you
Right.
don't have that neighborhood to say you have someone can assist your child, you can't help your child, but you certainly can find help. You don't have all the answers. None of us have all the answers, but the
Yes.
answers are available, right?
Right.
So we have to find those answers. It sounds easy to say, but it's not impossible. It's doable, right? And as you rightfully mentioned, some of our parents are not educated. So we have to now put steps in place as teachers. Sometimes when you identify those gaps, you can recommend assisting that parent, because I
Mhm.
know for a fact at the preparatory level and for some primary levels, the parents are taught the topics that their children are being taught in PTA meetings,
Yes.
so that way they can help their child. So sometimes the school or the teacher can put things in place to assist that home. So it's
But
not
but
left.
you but you know, Rochelle, that even on a um level playing field, some of the parents don't turn up for PTA meetings.
That is
So
true, and then
they're gonna turn
the
up now.
problem, and
So
that's the
what's gonna
problem.
happen now?
Parental input is very essential, and it is a partnership. It's a partnership. So they come to school, and we educate your children, of course,
Right.
but education does not start at school, and you don't have to be in an institution to be educated,
Absolutely.
right? So we have to make that distinction. So the
Hmm.
school is that place, that institution where we continue the process of education. We don't start the process of education. It's
So
an institution.
how can we get them to understand? In the last 2 weeks, I've been hearing so I call it horror stories, where some of the parents are calling to say, but me not understand what them blank you mean. It's really clueless. So for those parents who are literally clueless, is there how are we going to catch those kids that fall in this hole? Because this is a hole. Because if a parent, whether don't care, can't understand, is unavailable, a teacher has several students in one class. How can she manage to teach, follow up with the parents, whether the parents is being straightforward with her, yes or no, whether them understand or don't understand? How can we manage this massive? I don't even know what to call it, because
It
that
is.
is why it's so wide and deep. That
It
how do you start? What do you do? Give us an idea of what you do.
it is a very touchy, as in at Campion, what I do at Campion.
What do you do for your students,
For well,
especially for those who you realize are not catching up, or you may think that they have a difficulty of some kind. How do you plug that hole?
for me, what I have to do, I have to find out what the problem is. I'm not a trained psychologist to do any form of
Mm,
assessment. But when
right.
you are at an institution, you have to remember that you don't operate independently. So
Okay.
you as a teacher, you don't operate independently, and that is something that we have to be mindful of as educators.
Yes.
Communication is the basis of every thriving relationship, professional and personal.
Right.
So we have to understand that we observe something in the classroom. Granted, don't get me wrong, we are swamped with work and we're overwhelmed. But as I said at the beginning, this is a profession where you have to have a humble, caring, and pure heart. So you identify a challenge in your students. You
Mm-hmm.
know that everyone else, let's say probably you have 30, 50 students, whatever the number is, and you have 80% passing something. What about the
Right.
20%? What do you do with that 20%? For me, what I do, I call them on a side, or I'll send an email, because we use email as our mode of communication. And we have scheduled consultation times. So students who are falling behind, they are expected to be at consultation. And you write the parents are aware of this. So it's not a choice. You don't give them a choice to say you can come if you want. You are falling behind, you should be at consultation. So measures are put in place to reach those students who are falling behind. If
Mm-hmm.
that's not working, you need to inform the guidance counselor. If you realize that there is something else going on, you need to inform the guidance counselor or the grade supervisor. As I said, we don't operate independently. It's a community.
Right.
They may
Miss.
know more information than you have, right?
Mhm.
So what do? You have to make sure that you identify the challenge and communicate this challenge if it's bigger than you and you can't
Right.
fix it. You
Right.
communicate it to the next level. There's a chain of command that you have to follow. You report
Right.
that situation and you follow up. You don't just report it and leave it there. You follow up to make sure that something is being done about it. And you step in now where you can.
Gina says if the persons who were not called were to leave the profession, there would be a big hole in the system.
Because we wouldn't have the labor to carry out the duties. And we have to be frank, we have to be very fair. None of
Yes.
us, many of us don't do the job we do because we're called for the job or because we are working because we really want to work. A lot of persons do what they have to do just for survival's sake. And we just have to acknowledge that fact. So
Right.
if we were to say you were called for the job or you were not called for the job and the persons who were called were to leave, we still would have a problem because the human mind is programmed a particular way. And when you study psychology and understand the motive for behavior, there is always a motivation for every behavior. So we're not all called in every line of work that we do, but we do it nonetheless, and we do it with respect and take pride in what we do, regardless.
I think Kema is trying to make us feel a little better. Kema says the New York Board of Education is not getting the distance learning right either. So let me not make it about Jamaica. I suppose it's a worldwide challenge.
It is. And it's not, as I said before, it is not a situation where it's all glim and glimmer for some schools or there's no challenge. Of course,
Yes.
there are challenges, but with the right decisions being made to include everyone. And we have to be fair in terms of special education. I've read an article recently and it speaks to the fact that students who have special learning needs are getting left behind, and that's a fact. And we have to bear in mind that we are not at that level before pre-COVID, and now, because quite frankly, for special education, there there really isn't any policy or law that is put in place that we can say the teachers or even the students with special needs feel as if they have something to work with.
Right.
It's something that the government has to act swiftly on, because we can't have one set of persons being educated and the other set getting left behind. So
Right.
what are the things that are in place for those who are marginalized? What is in place for those persons? Especially if there isn't a document to govern certain things.
Yes.
They're not being supported. And that was pre-COVID, and it is even worse now because we have very little public institutions for special educations, for
Special ed,
students.
special ed
Right,
students.
right. So we're trained to say students with special needs because you put the people first.
Right.
So we don't have many of those institutions, right? And the ones that we have that are private, the fees are too high. Persons who would love to go to those institutions, can't afford it. What is in place for persons like those? We don't have anything in place.
Yeah. Yeah, because even at my spa, we have quite a few children that are special needs, and some of them even have to have a shadow. And I know that's a very expensive affair, So I'm wondering what's happening in this whole scenario of COVID. How are they learning? How are they managing when there's
Some
no
people are not
contact?
actually getting any formal education at this time, and that
Wow.
is the sad reality. Many of, especially those who would require that direct contact, or
Yes,
that
a lot of the autistic kids need that individual attention.
and we have to be honest as well. Sometimes school would have been the safe place for many of our students. School would have been the safe place for many of our students, and we have to just bear those things in mind. So no, it is a very difficult and touchy situation, because it's as though we're creating another opportunity for illiteracy.
And we know we can't afford that. 'Cause we can't afford no more crime.
And
No more
I
crime.
think it is not something that is gonna be solved by us talking about it. No, it is something that has to be solved from a national or governmental level. Policies have to be in place. And I mean, I'm seeing someone talking about the technology in the country. That is another sore point. The customs fee to bring in technology, especially now when it is a need in education. I think that is something that the government should even act on as well. The
I don't
availability.
even understand why it's not free to carry in right now at this time when everybody, every Joe Blow, everybody needs to have at least a device.
And
I
even if
can't
you
even
have
understand what a household with 3 and 4 kids in there look like. I can't even imagine that.
And even if you have family members or persons who are willing to give you this device to ship it down or something, the cost to clear it is too much. It's almost
Absolutely.
like you're buying the
Is there
device.
no lobby? Is there no lobby at this time for the government to lift or waive these fees? Is there, do you know?
I, I think Ship Me has put out a declaration for 100 US, for the minimum to be 100 US.
Okay.
That is the one that I've seen recently from
There's
Ship Me.
nothing directly from the government.
But it was a petition that they had to get a few thousands of persons
Okay. I get what you're saying.
for it to be, yeah, exactly. So it's
I
not
get what
something.
you're saying.
Yeah, so it's really a private shipping company that's actually lobbying for that. So it's not on a national level. But I mean, articles were in the newspaper about, councillors requesting for the government to lift the price of technology, the customs fee, something to that effect. I mean, it is a situation where we are transitioning or preparing our students for the 21st century. We
Mhm.
can't prepare them if we're not adequately supplied with resources.
Right.
Right?
Marsha Ann says the greater concern for me are the resources being limited for specific groups, which is what we're talking about. But it is rough.
Again, that equity.
Equity.
Equity. It is rough. And yes, persons who can afford it will have it. And when we talk about equity, those who can't afford it, what's going to happen? I mean, I know that person, like
I see
private
on
person.
television persons in rural areas. The teachers have to be dropping off the homework by some means, whether by bike, by bicycle, by car. How
For
practical you
cases
think this
like that,
is? Because they have
for,
no access to internet.
and personally, this is my personal view on that.
Mhm.
Schools in the rural areas that can be adequately spaced to support students from a face-to-face perspective, I think that should happen. Because if you can't take a one size fits all
Sure,
approach to the education system. You
absolutely.
can't. And if it is an area where COVID is is really low. The cases are really low. Why can't we put the same protocols in place, regardless if it is low, and have those students in school? There, first of all, when you check out some of these rural areas, I live in the rural side, right? I live in Golden Spring area, but and the internet sometimes is very very poor here, and this is not country.
Right.
So when you think about those in really deep rural areas that they don't have access to the internet, what is going to happen to them? They don't go to school because they can't learn online. I don't think that is fair. And if
It's neither fair nor practical.
no, it's not. That's just a preposterous perspective to this
Right.
education system. You have
Yeah.
to be pragmatic about everything that you do. And if they are in the area that is not so prevalent or have low cases, have them go to school. Have them go to school if it is even on a shift basis. If it is even on a shift basis, but it is not. It just doesn't make sense to have them sit at home not being educated.
Yes.
Doesn't make sense. So we can't say that because they don't have internet they can't learn. That is nonsense.
Yeah, but who is there to speak up for them?
That
Is
is the
there
next.
is there a well, I don't know if in the rural area is, I mean, yes, there's a teacher body, right? Am I correct? Because I'm not off with the structure of
We
how
have a body
and we
that
have a teacher body, but
JT, right? We have JT.
okay, but
Teachers
how
Association.
can, say, the teachers in the rural area speak up for the children? I mean, the principals speak up for the children, because this, I mean, we are going on with our business as if it is um it's accessible to all, and it's
It's
not.
not. It is not.
So who is speaking for the children in the rural areas?
And even not even just that, even though school got the go ahead to operate October 5th, right? Many schools are still not online. Many schools are still not ready to support their learners. Many schools are not. So students would be sitting down, and these are experiences that I can speak from, that I see with my own eyes.
Right.
Students sit waiting for the links to join their classes, nothing. We're just not at that level, but what do? Do you sit around and do nothing? Something has to be in place. The schools need to get ready, yes, but it takes money, it takes time. And we have to bear in mind that the government funding is just not enough to support the things that needs to be done. It's not enough.
So you, in your estimation, Rochelle, what can we do? As well, when I say we, for people with children, parents, how can parents come together and speak up for their children as a unit? Because it's going to take some lobbying. It's going to take some lobbying, not to necessarily to the government. It's going to take some lobbying for to other parents to say, hey, let us come together, whether it's online, by Zoom, whatever. How can they come together and make this happen? Because I have a saying, whether you do or you don't, time passes, and time is passing. The 5th of November of October has now turned to today is the 12th. How many people are online? How are we managing? How are we going to go forward? What are we going to do tomorrow?
This
So
is
how
this,
how how how, how can we get involved?
this is not the time or moment where we be selfish. This is no more than ever where collaboration is definitely key. And we as I said earlier, going back to the village situation, doesn't have to be a literal village, but we have to have that support system. Those who can't access it, if you personally, if you can, this is my belief, if you can do something to help another child to gain educational access, I think if you can, if it is within your means to do so, by whatever way, is it to have them even come on your veranda to use your Wi-Fi, things like that. I mean, we have things at our disposal, but some of us are just very selfish, and that is just really the problem.
How
We
can how can
look
corporate Jamaica get involved?
I mean, corporate Jamaica has been involved, to be quite honest with you. Quite a few private
How
organizations.
more of us can get involved?
Well, what I would suggest, perhaps contact different schools, especially the ones that don't have these access. How can you help those schools? I think we should start there in terms of contacting the
And when I
schools.
say corporate Jamaica, I mean not just people with businesses, but people who work in, who can help and who don't have any children.
I mean, if you are in a community and you notice that the students in the community are not going to school, they're not able to log on to the Wi-Fi, you know of their situation, you are in a position to help. I think you can, if it's even to put them on your veranda, because we know COVID, a lot of persons are still worried
Afraid.
about COVID and don't want to let persons in their space, and that is quite understandable. So if it is even to set up proper protocol and say, you have your sanitization, or have them bring their sanitizer, wear their mask. I mean, there are things that we can do to help each other.
But
And if
Rochelle, the question I'm coming in fast and furious. But Gina says is a half-baked teacher because remember now we did have some bad teachers in the system from before now. So I don't know what's gonna happen now when who lazy, who don't prepare, who don't have them act together. I don't know what's going to happen to them now in this new system.
that
But
is a
but Gina says, is a half-baked teacher better than nobody, or are these half-baked teachers doing positive harm? Because that's another thing. A teacher who is half-baked is left to manage a class, and she herself or he himself is not prepared for online. Is a half-baked teacher better than no teacher at all, or are they doing more damage than good?
it depends on the circumstance, because from for me, preparation is everything. You have to prepare. And this online space is not a space where you can just go and not do anything. This is a space where preparation is everything, right? You have to bear that in mind. Something
Yeah.
fine.
Oh, shit.
When I live in the country.
Yeah.
Preparation is key. So if you were not that organized or prepared person, now is not the time to play around. But to answer the question, is a half-baked teacher better than nobody at all? Most certainly, because if the children are getting that opportunity to be educated
Mhm.
and have access to that information that you have to share, if you don't want to put out the effort, for me, this is what I think. If you provide the students with the opportunity to access the platforms and get the work done, at least it is better for them to get something in the head than nothing at all.
You know what I want to ask you, Rochelle? How are these teachers now being monitored? I mean, they're not in a physical location, right? I know, I don't know the readiness of the principals to manage the whole school online. What is happening to monitor teachers or what the teachers are doing online?
Going back to my previous point about leadership in its entirety, leading doesn't mean you have to be at the forefront.
Mhm.
Leadership is allowing your staff to know what is required of them, what consequence would be in place, because we can't just look at it from a ministry perspective and say, oh, the government not doing this, the government not doing that. Remember, if you're a principal, you are the CEO of your institution,
Right.
and there are sanctions, of course, that will fit in the policies provided by the ministry, but
Mhm.
surely not the only thing that guides your level of operation as an institution.
Yes.
So your teachers, what would have been in place prior to COVID? That is the question you have to ask.
Yes.
Was it a free-for-all approach prior to COVID? You have to think about that. What
Yes.
was this leadership style like pre-COVID? Things
Right.
have to be in place. So you have to make sure that you find ways to evaluate what you are doing. So Do check-in sessions with your staff. Support is absolutely necessary at this point in time. Even if you never had support before, now is the time where you need to be critically involved in your staff's performance, because you want to make sure that quality education is being delivered. You can put, there are several platforms that can be used online. For us, we use Zoom, which is a universal platform for many schools. Allow the teachers to record their lessons and create a hub or somewhere they can post these lessons.
Okay,
So
get you.
students who were not in the live session would still have access to the lesson. So if it is
Right.
even put it on a thumb drive or whatever is available to that student and drop it off at the school and they can pick it up at the school, there are many solutions to the problems that we face. Certainly not all the problems that we face. So the school, the leadership team, the admin team can check in on the staff, do evaluation, check in with your students. You can't just ask from the teacher's perspective, because you have to also find out from your students what is happening. Are they accessing the class? What are the challenges they're facing? You can't know the challenges unless you ask. So formative evaluation and a summative evaluation is very critical, especially now in this online space. And you can't
Okay.
just take it from the student's perspective as well. You have to take it from the parents' perspectives as well. So it's a whole community, and
Mhm.
everyone has a
It
role to play.
requires all hands on deck. It requires all hands on deck for it to work, because the
Exactly.
supervision has to come from home, it has
Absolutely.
to come from the teacher, it has to come from the principal. So at every level
Every
there
level.
has to be some form of
Data
management.
management and information. Yes, for sure. You have to be driven by data.
Yes.
And that's the future. That's the future. Data, we're a data driven future. We're heading into a data driven future. And we have to be prepared for that so we can adequately prepare our students for that. And if we want to prepare future leaders, we have to demonstrate those qualities as well that we would like our students to show. So we have to put in place ways to assess what is happening, and of course what is not working, find ways to fix it. Personally, for me, what I do in all my classes, at the beginning, I check in on the students. I find out it's not just about academics. You have to bear that in mind. And no more than ever, if you check the statistics, students are suffering more from mental challenges. They're suffering from a lot of depression. Even the very staff, your colleagues, you have to check in on each other. You have to check in on each other. You have to make sure you find out what is happening. And as Marsha and I'm seeing on the screen, she's saying
Right.
that beyond illiteracy, which is true, because school would have been a safe zone for many of our students.
Not to
And that
mention food for these
exactly,
primary situations where they were getting at least one meal a day.
it is really sad. But as I said, as you asked, how can corporate Jamaica help? You start with your community. Start with your community. Start with,
Kamoy says, yes, Kamoy says, it is also a struggle for kids in rural areas without proper internet availability. I have been trying to figure out ways to help my family in certain parts of St. Elizabeth. So apparently, St. Elizabeth is in a bad way.
which is why I mentioned. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, you go ahead. Which is why I mentioned what?
No, man, that's why I mentioned that schools in the rural areas, if they can be open face to face, even on a shift system, I think that is what should happen. Because the internet, because I have friends who teach in St. Elizabeth, and a lot of times they have to be using data to access everything, the students. So it is not a case where they have the internet widely available. And that's
Right.
another thing I think that we should work on as a country, right? So the flow and the digital, we have to do better where that is concerned. flow, the internet service is frequently disrupted, very frequently.
Well, I mean, I know they have been suffering from theft, from their wires and all of those things. I don't
So
know. So, I mean, plus the additional demand on the system,
exactly.
we just weren't ready. We just weren't ready because, I mean,
The bandwidth is just too little for all the persons who need to join, and even it is even affecting the phone calls. So even if you want to make a call,
every minute the calls drop now.
it's affecting a lot of
Yes.
areas, right?
Marsha
So
says she knows someone personally who families in a one room, 5 children, mother can't read. School for food and face to face was the only escape. There should be provisions, open air, old time, churchyard school. So
even
I don't know
that,
if that's also an option.
I mean, there are buildings that are closed that are not being used right now. If we can advocate or lobby for those buildings to be utilized to spread across, so to to
Especially in the rural areas.
right.
Churches also, I mean, churches have big expanse. A lot of churches have spans where people can social distance. The only challenge I see really is like for the very small children who, they don't understand social distancing.
Yeah,
And,
they don't.
they hug up and they kiss and I'm glad to see them friend. And, oh, your mask, pretty, can I borrow your mask? I prefer your mask.
That's
And that
another
kind of thing.
issue.
That's the whole thing. And that would
Yeah.
be very difficult for teachers to manage. I don't even know how kindergarten is being kept now. How is
I,
that being managed now?
I don't think most of them are open face to face, but a few that probably have proper
Ma-
infrastructure in place, yeah, to
At
support.
home, to
And
support.
again, it comes with a cost that many can't afford. So that is really one of the sore points. And for me, I where we are at Campion, our motto is always about the magis, giving more, giving of yourself. How can you do more? How can you do something for somebody? And it is really a good principle to instill in children, because you find that we are a very selfish society, and it is a sad reality. I mean, you are teaching, and even in many schools, and I'm telling you, many schools, primary, secondary, tertiary, whatever level it is, many institutions, colleagues are teaching the same subject area, they are teaching the same thing, and you are not collaborating. I think that is nonsense.
But why would that be?
Why would that be nonsense
Yeah.
if you
No,
are,
no. Why would they not be collaborating?
honestly, it speaks from their personality, their person, and
In
if
some level
you
of insecurity? Or is it that some people might feel that they prepare while another person does sit down and them wait for help?
well,
What
that
I'm
is
trying to get is the mindset. What is the
not
mindset?
again,
What is the challenge that we're having?
so I mean, as you rightfully said, you have persons who will definitely sit and prepare their lessons. But what was the function of the department initially? What was the principles or standards for that institution? Do you plan together? Do you plan independently? Quite frankly, it is, if you're teaching the same year group and you're teaching the same thing, from a personal standpoint and experience, I think that it is more effective when when all the students are exposed to the same content, the same access to resources, whatever it is, because it is now a leveled playing field. But
What
you
I'm
can't have
hearing you say, and I want you to correct me, what I'm hearing you say is that the teachers need now to come together to see how best they can operate more efficiently. Is that what you're
that.
saying?
Yes, it is
And
more
more
efficiently
collaboration,
and
more
collaboration.
collaboration is necessary.
Very necessary, especially now in this time. It is very necessary, very very necessary.
And,
And
and that's not necessarily happening now.
no,
So,
no,
okay, so all right, so you have the platform. Speak to the teachers out there as to what you think, in your view, as a trainer, as an educator. Just give them a, just say what you see that needs to be done, and just give them your general advice. Because some people may not even think about it, Some people, some people sit down in their own little world, a batter, and don't even think of picking up the phone. And it doesn't have to be the same school. It can be from school to school. Know that everything is online. It should be a level playing field, really and truly, because this has to do with, as you said, collaboration, right? And
collaboration
if
is
I'm
key.
in a position where, like a champion, we were online from before, because I talked to Mr. Henry, so I know you guys were kind of doing
We
it
were
before.
using the Moodle as an asynchronous approach.
Right. So when this came on, you were a little bit ahead of the others. So if, and I mean, there is a teacher body, there is a PT, what do you call your body? The Teachers Association,
The teachers
JT,
association.
right? Jamaica Teachers Association, and so they should have a platform for sharing what works. So I'm shooting it to you now. Give us some advice. Give them some advice.
Well, what I'm speaking from how I operate in my classes pre-COVID and during COVID, but more now during COVID, and how we operate as a school and as a department. So for me, my students are aware of what we are expected to cover. So there is a pacing guide, or what you would call an outline. Students are aware of what we hope to cover for the year or for the term, because we're taking it in bite sizes, because we don't know what next year will hold. So at least
Well,
have a plan for the
for
term.
next month, because things changing now rapidly, from month to month.
So, and it is important to plan together, because we want to make sure, as we said, equity and access. So as a department, for the subject levels, we plan together. And I think that is right across the board, not just my science department, it's right across the board. We plan together. Of course, each teacher will have their swing or their touch that they would put to their assessment or whatever the case is, but there's a guide, there's a standard plan, that's a universal plan. So we
Yes,
know this is what we hope to achieve. We would love to assess, do a formative assessment or a summative assessment this week. So there are
yes,
certain things in place. So you can choose to use Edpuzzle, you can choose to use quizzes, whatever platform works for your students, but it is communicated.
right,
Said communication is key. So for us, we plan together, and wherever there are changes that need to be done or whatever tweaks need to be done, we simply communicate that. For
yes,
example, last week, a colleague of mine had set the first form test, or yeah, I think it was the first form test. And we have a group that we talk in, and she mentioned that, boy, another teacher mentioned that, well, I took out this particular question because I didn't think my students got it, or I wasn't there as yet, or I think this might be a confusing question for my students. You know your students, so you can tweak accordingly, but the standard remains the same level of difficulty, the same type of questions. They can be worded differently, but there's a guideline.
right,
So it is important, because at least we can't say one class is getting X and another class is getting Y. At the end of the day, they're all learning from the same syllabus. They're all going to sit the same exam. Why not
right,
prepare them together for the same thing?
right.
So it's not a case where you want your group to do better than the other. That's not the motive. We're
No,
all working towards a common goal, which is to educate our children. It's not
absolutely.
about, you have to put ego aside in the classroom and in your profession. You have to put ego aside. It's not about you. It's not about you. Of
It's
course.
It was never really about the individual. But
It's not.
the truth is, as schools, we are competitive by nature. Who is uptown school from, who is downtown school from, who is garrison school from, who is rural school from, who is topper school from, who, from who did go there, from who have the best this and who have the best that. The thing is, I think COVID has the this is an opportunity, not necessarily to level the playing field, but for a little bit more equity. If
And to
we
be
can share information, because this is online, there's no building, it's as I said, it's one syllabus. It's Jamaica. It's not just Campion versus Queens versus Tivoli versus Trenchtown versus some school in Savlamar versus some school in Montego Bay. If there can be a way, because this is new to everybody, if there can be a way to share the information across the board, even from overseas to here, and everybody kind of try to navigate this thing as one unit, I think we can all get there eventually. And of course, if the government um comes in now and allows people to just bring, I mean, yes, some people going to go out your eye and some people going to take advantage of situation, but that is not to kill the people
proper
who are
uh,
trying to just get in a one device. If you understand what I'm saying. They will have to try and manage those who going to swamp the place and trying to make a killing off of poor people, which is, I mean, I find those things so disgusting. 'Cause everybody's trying to kill everybody now because whatever is shot now, things like alcohol gone up twice,
oh,
100% increase
it's
and all those things
yes.
because
I
of
mean,
what is happening. But put unconscionable people aside, persons who are just really trying to survive. I think we need to just work together. Um,
collaborate is very
yes, it has to be a collaboration. Marsha
and
Hannah said earlier
it
that this is a gap year, but Genius is saying, can we really afford a gap year? Some people are in their last year of school. Some people are in their exam year. Some people are going on to PEP, or some people are in the middle of PEP. So really and truly, it's not really, for some people, it's not really, there's no choice.
no choice. And that the thing is, when you talk about examination, a lot of policies are not appropriately drafted to support this change.
I'm hearing what you're saying.
Yeah, a lot of policies are not drafted to support this change. And if you can't have a policy that was never meant to operate in a COVID or a pandemic be governing what you do. You have to draft a policy that would make sense. It has to be a pragmatic policy. And one of those exams for the CXC, I mean, there are a lot of discrepancies in even the scores with the results from CSEC. So
Hmm.
policies have to be revised to match what is happening now. And we're in an age where we are characterized by information and computerization. Everything is being digital right now.
Right.
Eventually into that place of a digital world, right?
Yes.
And we can't afford to allow our children to be illiterate where that is concerned. So we have to they have to have the adequate resources to support that. They have to.
Sherry is saying adopt a school. Can the list of schools be published so that the private corporate sector can give some help? Do you think that's
I
something
think
that
that's
do you think
I
that's
think that's a
something that
very
the ministry could do to say which schools are in in dire need so that at least we can start something?
exactly. I
And
mean,
I'm sure individuals would even donate devices, if needs be, not just the corporate. Because when I say corporate, I mean people who are work and who can help.
who's willing to. Yeah, I mean, the struggle is real for all of us,
Mhm.
and We just have to be solution minded. We can't drown ourselves in problems. So to everything, you have to be solution oriented. And put it this way: the solution you come up with may not work, but it
Yes,
doesn't mean it's the end of the road. We have to just be solution driven. All right.
yes,
So something doesn't work, you go back to the drawing board. Why it didn't work? Why didn't it work? You know, what
yes,
was the reason? Is it that the entire thing didn't work? Do I need to just tweak something in it? Do I need to add something? Do I need to remove something? So we don't. It's the mindset. The mindset is
yes.
your mind is very powerful. And
Extremely.
and as you mentioned about will, it's not just the will, but you can't just have it in your head and say, oh yeah, but I love for help, or I want to do this, or I think that is the problem. It can't just be up here. We have to put our actions to the top, to the top.
Yes.
We have to
Would,
put our
would you, do you think that the
pardon.
teachers, do you think that the teachers and the principals were properly, um, I don't want to say trained, um, do you think they have a full knowledge? And this is your opinion now. Do you think that they have a full knowledge? I mean, all of this was thrown upon, thrusted up upon us. Do you think they have a full working knowledge? I mean, realistically, of what is required, or are we just taking it day by day?
uh, from a personal
From a
standpoint, I,
personal
I,
standpoint, what you are seeing on the
I
ground as
really,
a teacher.
I really believe that it's an operation in bite sizes, and I don't think
I
no,
get that impression, although
yes,
I'm not in the school system. I
yeah,
get
I
that
don't think
impression.
anyone is really putting their whole plan into it, in the sense that they're not planning for a whole year,
Right.
because this is what the news says today. 2 weeks time it says something different. So, but
Get you.
guess what? You plan with room for adjustment. So you can't say that, okay, and this is, I'm speaking from a personal perspective as it relates to operating from an administrative perspective. You can't
Yes.
say that ministry is not doing this or the ministry is not doing that. What are your plans for your institution? What are your plans for your teachers? What are your plans for your students? How can you still operate safely by delivering quality education? It may not be at its best, but you have to have some plan. You can't work from a blank slate.
Right.
And we have to understand that COVID came in March. Schools were closed on March 13th or 14th, I believe, somewhere around that time. And from then, school has not really reopened face to face. So during those times, and based on if you were following the news internationally, locally, what would have been some plans you would put in place given the nature of things? When it come down to July, you realize that they're still iffy in terms of opening school. What were your plans then? How
Mm-hmm.
did you communicate that? Is your staff aware? Are the parents aware? Are the students aware? So
Mm-hmm.
communication is really, really, really important. So for now, from how I see it, I don't think a lot of institutions are really planning to say that, okay, we're planning for the whole year. We have to take it in bite sizes. But in taking it in bite sizes, what are those bite sizes effective? Is everyone aware of those bite-sized plans? Are they all in the head or on paper? Are they communicated? That is really the big question.
Do you know, and maybe Genius could answer this question. Do you know if, for example, all the principals like have a group that they could um, bounce things off of each other, what is working for them, what they need, because some are more experienced than others. Would you say that do you know if there's like a group with the principals? Do they communicate to say, um, How can I? Because I'm sure some of these schools are overwhelmed. Because first of all, they don't know where to find the first dollar. Worse, now that school not keeping, people are hesitant to pay school fees. That's another thing that we need to speak about. Do you think it is fair that I mean persons are going virtual? There's no school being kept at the physical building. So there's no light bill, there's no all of those miscellaneous. However, the teachers have to be paid, right? But persons are hesitant to pay school fees. So how are the schools managing? And are the schools managing? Are we telling the public what is really happening? Are we fully aware of what is required to manage virtual learning? A lot of what is happening is that because people don't understand what is required from the teachers. My friend here, she is in the Poconos. She says she's working harder than ever. And her school, them get free food, them get free everybody, every single solitary student has gotten a device. So they have no excuse whatsoever. Anything they need, they get. However, in the Poconos, they literally go into school and teach from the classroom. They have the interactive board and everything. So everybody, all the teachers use the internet from the school. And even then, it's still a struggle because the at home fall down. There's no management at home. And you know, in America, it's a free society. If the kid says, you know, I'm having a headache, this gives me a headache, I don't feel like learning today. You know, Johnny doesn't feel well, so Johnny's just not going to tune in. That is what she's facing. Whereas we, on the other hand, we just don't have the devices and we don't have the infrastructure to manage. But either side, it's still a challenge.
For both sides, it is a
For
challenge, and
both
that's why
sides,
I
it's
say
still a challenge.
the parents, the home situation is really the the focus now has to be on the home situation, because schools are putting in place for their staff to come in and use the internet there if they don't have stable internet. So from an institutional perspective, things are being put in place. But when you talk about the home situation, will there be opportunities then for students to come in and use the internet at school? Is that a solution if the home situation is not suitable? But then in having the children come to school and use the school's internet, who will supervise them if the teachers are not necessarily at the school teaching? Do they have a one or two students in the class and they teach from the school? What would work best for that particular institution? Because
Well,
then every
but maybe there has to be a you call it no, some kind of not research, but some kind of you throw it out, the parents respond,
do like a what you call it, a survey to find.
survey,
So you do a
right?
survey.
A survey as to what your needs are, and then you operate accordingly based on needs assessment.
And then
Can that
putting,
be done?
but then working harder now for the teachers. The planning time has increased drastically for sure. I mean, if you are not disciplined and say, okay, work ends at X time, you find yourself up till midnight working just to make sure everything is in place. So it is working from home is not necessarily a what you call it, is not a bed of rose, as Buju Banton would say. It's not a bed of
Right,
rose, but
right.
it requires a lot of discipline. It requires a lot of planning. And you might plan a lesson so perfectly, and it doesn't necessarily execute the way you would have anticipated that it would be executed. Wi-Fi challenges, Zoom, students get bumped off the Zoom, the platform that you want to use is not working. There are several things that can go wrong when you are in this online platform.
How
So
do
as
you?
you
Yes. Oh no,
so
finish.
Oh, I was saying, as you rightfully said, now doing that survey and needs assessment can better enable now institutions to plan accordingly. So
Yes.
those students who are not able to access the internet, you know, sometimes as a teacher, I'm sure there's a number on file for those students. You communicate with your, as again, there's a chain of command. You communicate with your grade supervisor. I say, boy, I realized that so and so not coming to class for 2 weeks now. What's happening? You know, the grade supervisor might have information. If she doesn't have information, it wouldn't hurt to give a call to find
Right.
out how you can help, because and as I said, it requires a lot more from us as educators, but you have to care and you have to want to do this.
All right. So as a teacher yourself, and you also have a child,
Yes.
how would you? What would you say is the level of buy-in from the children? How are the children responding?
To the online learning,
Those
you know,
who do have access and is has been coming to classes on a regular basis online.
I will start with my most recent experience today in today's class. As I said, I always check in at the beginning of class. I don't just jump into the content. I play music in my class. And, like we have a 5 minutes grace period. So we give them some time to join, and I play music during that time to settle them. And then I'll ask, how are you doing? How has your week been? How's your weekend? Or so on.
You say
And
all them something I talk about, Rochelle. All of them something that me I talk about. For a teacher who can manage her class, she don't need that little insight there. And that me I talk about. Them little insight there, them little nuggets there when not really come on paper. Things
yeah,
that you find that work for you, and
yeah,
that me I talk about. So when me hear, I say, someone ever think about,
yeah,
play
man.
little music that calm them down.
I play
You know,
music.
so will you play? That kind of thing. Those are the conversations that need to be had. Anyway, continue. We just interject. You know what I'm saying? Because
That's
that is
what,
not something that I would have even thought about. Maybe if I was doing it, it maybe would have
yeah.
come to me. But it's because of your level of experience and the passion that you bring to it, that those are some of the things that maybe another teacher who was struggling and hold her head and depressed, and she can't settle down to pick them, and she'll wait for everybody coming one and she not playing the music and everybody distracted. You understand what I'm saying?
You
These
can't
are the nuggets that will assist.
you can't be too rigid. Honestly, you can't. You are human. You're not a robot. You're not a brick wall. You are human, and your students have to know that you are human.
Right.
So
Going on,
you
though, assume some of them think that the teacher know everything and the teachers are
know,
gods and the teacher don't have any problem at all.
no. That is, you see, that's the illusion that was created. We have to make sure we allow it, and that's why they operate. That's why we're in a society where we are now,
Right.
because these illusions and not pragmatic situations.
The
So
truth. The
we have
truth.
we have to be authentic. You the most inspiring thing you can do as a teacher is be yourself.
Right.
And I was just saying to them that, how was your weekend? You have to care. The social emotional learning is absolutely important, especially now more than ever. If you were in the face to face and you never cared about asking the students how they were, if you didn't do that in the face to face session, I'm telling you, now is the time to do that, because a lot of them are struggling. I'm telling you, as much as the ones who have access, they are still struggling, because they say, boy, miss, I just feel tired, I just feel overwhelmed. Miss, I can't bother, Miss, I'm just exhausted. And those were some of the comments that you would get. They're tired, they're exhausted, the workload is a lot. And you have to bear in mind that they're human too. For me, I schedule breaks in my class. We have to think about the health, not just for the students, for yourself as well. sitting in the same position for hours, it's not good for you. You have to get up, you have to stretch. And in those restful breaks, I'd say, take a minute, stand up, take a break. Sometimes they're just jumping out of one class, jumping into the next. They need that mental break. So you have to design your lessons in such a way that you capture your objectives, because that's what you're getting paid to do.
Right.
You're paid to make sure they're educated. But
Absolutely.
there's a hidden curriculum that you have to deliver as well. So you capture your objectives. So time your objectives, and even in the restful breaks, if it is even to make the restful breaks a part of the activity. I remember for one activity I gave some students, they were doing safety, and they had to walk up and down in the house for like a minute to find different materials in the house with safety symbols and come back. So schedule the breaks within the activity.
Nice.
So you're not
And that
losing any.
offers some stimulation as well.
You're not losing any teaching time, but they're getting a more authentic view of the
Yes,
lesson,
sure.
because you don't have anything tangible to show to exchange. But there
Right.
is homes you can utilize what they have, and
Absolutely.
really important to plan with that in mind. Plan with a universal design approach. Don't plan and say, okay, you will always have this in your house. Plan not knowing what they have. So everyone knowing what, no matter what you have, you can still participate. Because
Great.
inclusive education is where we are headed. Not there yet, and trust me, it's just a small minority that really practice this
Mhm.
inclusive education approach. And it is something that we have to bear in mind, that inclusion goes beyond a child in a wheelchair or a child who needs a text to speech device. It goes way beyond that. It goes to their socioeconomic background, their diversity, religion, culture. So when you plan your lessons, don't plan them to exclude or handicap any of your students.
Absolutely. Mashan
So
says learning management system as an e-library. I don't know how much savvy tech support MOE have behind them.
oh, I've never checked out the e-library before. I've never checked it out before, but I know that for us, maintenance is a big thing for us.
Hmm.
Monitoring and maintaining our platforms is a big thing. So it is really something that we have to work on, and it costs money to operate on these technological platforms. It really
Hmm.
costs a lot of money. So probably they don't have somebody to frequently upgrade the system. I've never checked it out, as I said before,
Yes.
but I will give it a check for sure. But
Okay.
a lot of these platforms require a lot of support.
Support. Nadine says, in the US, I had to make my principal a co-administrator in my Google Classroom. She is free to check in and observe my class. And I believe Mr. Henry says he does the same thing,
Yeah,
if
man.
I'm
But
not
you
mistaken.
don't even know when they come, or because they do it so quietly. But personally, you should not fear if your administrators enter your classroom, because you should always be prepared for your class.
Right.
So you shouldn't have an issue with your supervisor joining your classroom. I don't think it should be an issue, because if there is something wrong, we have to bear in mind that constructive criticism is a part of the growth process. So if
Mhm.
something didn't go well and you are, so they talk to you afterwards, I don't think it should be taken negatively, because it is a part of the growth process. And there are a lot of times when you do something that you're not completely aware of it, that, oh, geez, I didn't even realize that I was blocking out this student, or I was just
Mhm.
teaching a few set of students. So some things that it's good to get a nudge to say, okay, you need to work on this. And
Right.
that is why evaluation of your lessons are very important. I mean,
Okay.
that's I can't say it is an easy task or it is something that is not time consuming. I will never say that, because we all know that is not true. However, you have to make time for it, because that is how you grow. And you have to give your students time and opportunity to evaluate your class. Don't You
Right.
don't have to do it on the the official instrument from the school, you can do it in your class. So
Okay.
here, because this is what I do at the beginning, like the introductory class when school started, I prepared a Google form, like a survey form, and I asked them to share something interesting about them. What are some ways you would learn best in the in the online setting? Do you like the online setting? Quite a few of them said no, but they have to cope with it because it's a new reality. So getting their feedback and their perspective on how they view it and what are the things they would love to do in class to make it better for them is something very important. And that's what I do. And I have
Okay.
all that data in an Excel file for each class.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
so I can know, and I know each student who say, okay, they like music or they like this. So when I'm teaching, I try to personalize the lesson. Say, because I remember one student said she liked surfing, like she liked doing surfing or dancing or something to that effect. And we
Mhm.
were talking about safety,
Right.
and I utilized their interest to teach the lesson.
Okay.
It is very important to get the students' perspective first so you can plan for them because you can't plan for somebody who you don't know what they like.
Right.
So getting to know them is very important. And
So you would say that online learning is forcing the teacher to be more personally involved with the students rather than when it's in a blanket classroom and you just teach it from the board and you just put in all the lesson. Now you have to literally pull in the person because you have to hold their attention for this period of time.
you have to. And in doing so, you have to tap into their interest. You have to tap into what they like because
So it
it's not
really is
about
more
you.
work.
It's exactly. And if it is something that they're interested in,
Mhm.
they're gonna be engaged. They're gonna want to listen.
Right.
Get them involved in the process. I remember my fourth form class. We were doing classification in biology, and I said to them, so I introduced the topic, and then I said, for the next class, everybody need to take an item to class. And the whole, and I call everybody name on the list, they hold up their item and they verbalize what they have and they describe it. And then when we go through the entire list, after that, now they had to group everything that they saw on the camera or heard, they group it and they classify. And so you get them involved in the process, make it as authentic as possible. So you don't have to be in a lab to teach science. You don't necessarily have to have high tech tools to teach. Use what they have and make it a memorable moment, a
Moment.
teachable.
Nadine says, my classroom is open to everybody, parents watching and listening as well. We the teachers, have to be on our P's and Q's. Plenty empathy required. You know what I wanted to ask? Is there at any point of this whole change over to virtual learning, was there any training online offered for the parents?
Well,
For the parents
I
or
know the
guardians?
I know the ministry had put on some training for the parents, and JTC had done some trainings where parents were included in the training, so they were better able to assist their children.
Do
So
you
I can speak
have
from
any idea
JTC.
what was the percentage of uptake of that? You don't have any idea?
I
That
don't have that kind of
would
data,
be a
but
minister
I
question. I
was.
just asked in case you knew.
Pardon?
No, I was just asking in case you knew because I know that is probably a ministry question because they
Yeah,
would know what
I don't have
kind
that kind of
of.
data, but I was a part.
Sorry?
Yeah, and
I
I
didn't
know
hear what you
school. I mean, in the orientation,
said. Okay.
you're hearing me?
No, I didn't hear what you said. No, I said, you said
Oh,
you didn't know, you don't know from the ministry perspective, but you said something else, and I didn't hear
I said I knew that they had done the training because
that. Okay,
I was one of the prisoners, right?
okay.
Right.
Kemoy says he says he can send devices, but they with the strong internet service available, it is, oh, I guess without strong internet service available, it is really hard. So what he said, because he's overseas, he's saying that he is willing to send down devices, but if the people don't have
The internet.
internet, what would be the point?
That that's another thing too. But I think it's something that Digital and Flow will be working on eventually to get access right across the country.
Yes,
But that will definitely take some time. That will
right.
definitely take some time.
Yes. As we were saying, and you're saying churches should open up their spaces for to help the community. And she's reminded of Little House on the Prairie. Remember Little House on the Prairie? All the teaching took place in the church when church wasn't being kept.
And
Yeah,
then it goes
collaboration is a must, and these are some of the things. I think COVID has changed the way we operate. Yes, we are now online, but it's still the village that is going to be required to make this shift
and
work.
in having the village required, it is not just working together. Sometimes it's a simple call to check in to see if so and so is doing okay. How are they managing your very own colleagues? Because all of us are facing the hit from COVID. Every single one of us are
Mhm.
facing. Um, we're all facing the challenge. But as I said earlier, there is a solution to every single problem. But we just have to make sure we find the right
We
one.
have to collaborate.
Have to.
This person has no name, but it says, Miss Harris, you are excellent in your presentation. You answer very well. Great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ah, says you're Marsha and says you're a breath of fresh air.
Oh, thank you, Martha.
And then it says exactly. Pacing guide for all subjects works beautifully. Share what works and what doesn't. For sure.
Absolutely. And of
Anita
course,
says so true. Once they plan together, they can inform and great get help where needed.
yes,
The thing, what I'm hearing is collaboration, 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 collaboration. How are your remote students being assessed and tested? Do you know?
we have a Moodle platform, right? So we use Moodle as our learning management system, which is in sync with the RenWeb, which is our grading system.
Yes.
So Moodle is that platform where we set assignments, we set tests. It's a very dynamic platform. You can set games on it. You can set live tests where they do it within the class time or scheduled time. You can give specific students access. So you can design it in such a way where you have a bank of questions and you can have random questions being selected to make the test more valid and reliable. So, oh, I think I just answered that question about cheating. So the validity and the reliability is to have, so say you have 100 questions or 50 questions, but your test should really be made up of 10 questions or 20 questions. You can design it in such a way that the system will pull any random 15 questions from the list you have created. So
Oh,
no student don't necessarily have to get the same test.
get you.
Yeah.
But it's the
Level
same topic, but they might mix the questions.
Right. So that is a way to help prevent cheating. And there are different settings that you can go through in Moodle. There are other applications that can be installed, like Safe Exam Browser. So there are several things that can be installed, but again, not everyone would have access to these things.
Shireen says, until we get it right, teach a child a skill. Skill jobs will always be relevant. No child should be left behind. So if a child can't get access to school, teach that child how to sew, do hair, etc. Who is going to teach that child though? That is another thing. What's happening with the technical schools that just brought that up in my mind? What's happening with the technical schools at this time?
I think a lot of them are
How are they
suffering
managing
because they
online learning with technical schools?
I mean, they can follow tutorial, but it's not it won't be the
Not the
same. We
same.
have to acknowledge that it won't be the same. It won't be the same. we have to acknowledge that it is the way forward, but it will not be the same. It can't ever replace the kinesthetic approach. It can't ever replace that.
Well, I mean, we could argue that point because a lot of people today are learning from YouTube. So
That is true.
we could argue that point. Um,
But when I say it can't replace the kinesthetic approach, meaning that if you don't have the resources available to follow along, then you
mhm,
really miss the point. So just watching it may not be enough for some persons, depending
right.
on your learning style, as you mentioned earlier. Being aware of your learning style, that's something
Yes.
that you have to know about.
Um, Ms. Peter King says cheating can be reduced by robust critical thinking questions. Simple recall questions can be Googled, but educators have to recast and remodel questions, and collaboration will help. From your citizen question, from your citizen statement, you know, as a teacher, just by the way them lay it out, you know, as a teacher. I don't have to ask. What do you have to say to that?
I agree. I definitely agree because when you think about critical thinking questions,
Mhm.
if you give a critical thinking question, it should not be something that can be Googled and the answer pops right up. Yeah, it
Right,
has to be designed in such a way that can help the students to think. And that is one of the 4 C's that we are actually preparing the students to engage in with the 21st century: critical thinking, collaboration, creativity, and communication. Those are the 4 C's that we work towards. So
right.
this your questions should promote some level of critical thinking, and that is definitely done through collaboration for sure.
Awesome, awesome. Lance says, I would like to know what is your biggest challenge dealing with students in this time?
My biggest challenge is the the whole process is time consuming. Balancing family time, that's
Mhm,
really a challenge for me. I mean, I have good support system. I have a really good support system, which is essential to survive in this time.
mhm.
So the challenge is really just making sure that all my students are able to access and keeping up with who can't access and communicating, making the necessary communication. So that is really sometimes a challenge to keep up and make sure everything is in sync. So I can't say it's perfect, but it's not the end of the world. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
Yeah.
with proper time management and strategic approach, you can definitely make it work.
Okay.
So I just really find it.
That is personally, I sign up for as many training opportunities I find online because the administration is overwhelmed. Prepare for my students the best way I know how, 1 week at a time.
But we do weekly plans as well. So we kind of plan for the term in a sense, like a skeleton, but then
Mhm.
we meet and we discuss together and we plan for the week. So
Yes.
and we are encouraged by our administration as well to organize our Moodle pages by weeks. It is
Mhm.
easier to navigate and it's less frustrating for the students. So I definitely agree with the weekly format.
Peter Wright says invest the effort up front, then let it flow and relax and enjoy the downstream.
Goes right back to planning, as I said before at the beginning. Planning and
Mhm.
preparation is key, which he's right. If you plan and prepare, eventually you will pick up a rhythm. So you
Mhm.
have to make sure you work on your rhythm,
Mhm.
and so your cadence is everything. You have to work on that rhythm, find a flow, what works, and just stick to what works. I totally agree with that. And for us, we well, at least for my classes, so I design asynchronous sessions for students as well, which mean that we don't necessarily go on Zoom to have a live class,
Mhm.
but I monitor every single thing that they do. So I will put, so the planning takes up all the time, but I tell you it's worth it in the end
Mhm.
because when you have asynchronous session, it kind of gives you a breather, so you can probably use that time to mark some assignments. So it's really juggling and fitting everything into a schedule. And
Right.
when you have asynchronous sessions, don't don't give the students the impression that it's a free for all session, because they have work to do.
Yes.
They have work to do. You have to track that. So for me, when I give my asynchronous session, I make sure I use a platform that has a timestamp. So like Edpuzzle, the Moodle quizzes that we do, Google Forms, those all have timestamps, and it gives you data in terms of when they answer the question, how much of a video they watch, what percentage, what day they accessed it, the time, everything. So that way you can go through your data, contact the student and say, well, you didn't complete so and so and so. You need to complete it by X time. So being on them and making sure that they know that, hey, it's asynchronous, but I'm still tracking what you're doing.
Right.
So I utilize different platforms to get the register if I'm using an asynchronous session. So I'll use a Google form and the
So there is
timestamp.
a definite way to track what the students are doing.
Oh, yes, most definitely. Most definitely. There are different applications that will allow you to track what they're doing. And Google
Awesome.
Classroom for schools who don't have the finances to set up like a paid platform like Moodle or so on, because the free platform houses only 200 persons and it's only for 45 days. So that wouldn't make sense. But if
Right.
you have Google Classroom works beautifully with Edpuzzle, quizzes, and several other online platforms that can be integrated in your classroom.
How, all right. You may not know no, maybe that's an unfair question. Because I'm saying, how practical is it to expect that all schools can efficiently go online knowing the situation that we have in Jamaica? I mean, talking about rural, all of them. I mean, yes, the internet, but also the let's say internet was across Jamaica, even with internet access across Jamaica. Practically speaking, do you think that Jamaican schools in the rural areas could manage financially without the backing of, I don't want to call them wealthy, but call it working parents? Let us be practical, because many students in the rural areas, as we pointed out earlier, their parents are neither literate nor working. So school was an outlet for these kids. So even if we had island wide access to internet, are we still dreaming to think that all schools could be online efficiently?
It will definitely take time. I will not say it is impossible, but it will definitely take time. And when I say time, perhaps years to get it to the standard
Five
that we want.
years, less than 5 years, 3 years,
I don't
two
want to
years, 1 year, 10 months.
put a time stamp to it. Why?
No,
Because
ballpark, ballpark. So
ballpark,
a school in Moko.
it can take a few months for some schools. It can take a year for some school. It goes back to the finances, as you mentioned. It goes right back to finances and having that tech support. So is that because I mean you need a team that is willing to assist the administration in setting up everything and who is on call. So if there's a glitch in the system, they're on call to get it
My point.
rectified.
Are
That
those schools able to have that?
and that's what I'm saying. It definitely requires financial support. So or it could be a
Financial
situation
and
where the leadership
physical.
team, the admin team, could liaise up with the private sector and solicit some help, because you can't assume that everybody knows that you need help. You have to solicit that help as well. So prepare a proposal. What is your plan for your school? What's the design that you hope to have for your school? Because you have to remember that the school in and all by itself is an educational institution, but it's also a business. So
Absolutely.
you have to design your business proposal so you
Mhm.
can get investors. Just as how you have different products, set out there, and if you watch Shark Tank and those places where
Right.
they have to market their products, they have to market their service.
Absolutely.
So as a school, there are ways in which you can solicit the help, but your proposal has to make sense. It has to have a plan that is worth investing in.
Absolutely.
So
Marsha says your passion is unquestionable, Rochelle. And so does Sharika Campbell says Miss Harris is such a great teacher. Her approach and passion make learning very easy. Ah,
that's one of my past students. Oh, thank you, Shirika.
that's lovely.
Thank you.
It's that is absolutely important to get to know your students' likes and career goals. This is especially helpful in planning lessons and encouraging students as they look to the future.
Agreed. You can't plan for who you don't know.
No, work with mastery, not tests. Exams are 20th century, says Peter.
I mean, exams don't necessarily prove what you know from what you don't know. It's because I tell my students a numerical grade is important, but it is not everything. Because you can get 100% and still don't know anything in this topic. So
Shireen is answering us when I'm saying, about the technical school. She says she had a plumber the other day and he brought along his 7-year-old. She says, I kid you not. I think that 7-year-old could do the job all by himself. Very knowledgeable kid, learn a skill. And let me tell you, you call a plumber today is minimum of $4,500. So the truth is, skills learning is really essential also, but they
that's
really still need to be able to read and write. Read and writing is essential to be able to understand products, to be able to give advice, and to all of these things. Reading and writing is still the basic necessity. Is
yeah. But
still the background has to be there.
Mrs. Samuels,
Miss,
as I read
miss, stop
comments,
marrying me to my daddy. It's miss.
Miss sorry,
No,
my
no problem.
So as I read this post that Miss Virgo shared with this
Yes.
skill, it is very important because yes, you said reading and writing is important, but it's
Mhm.
also such a beautiful thing when you can marry both.
Yes,
So you take what that child knows in plumbing and
right.
teach everything using that area of
Yes,
interest or
get to.
skill. That's trust me, you can't beat teaching them how they learn. You can't beat that.
You had said something about the four C's. She said Peter says don't leave out the fifth C, citizenship.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Wright. Thank you so much. Important. Yes.
And he says
Thank
in the US, our curriculum is standardized, test driven. However, my strategy is mastery and relevance. Less is more, quality over quantity, which I think basically that's what you were saying earlier.
right. I mean, we are a test driven you know nation, and it's
Yes,
just really it's not necessarily proving that if you get 100 you are the best,
yes,
but at the same time it is what it is, but at the same time I definitely agree that less is more, because sometimes I think the curricula that we have working with, they're too robust and they're too compact. It is
hmm
a lot to get done in a short space of time,
hmm
and you can't possibly expect as educators that we will definitely or adequately then engage in critical thinking, because that is a skill that develops over time. And with the curriculum being so compact, there's hardly any time to input those. It has to be a deliberate effort. And if we are
yes,
focusing on content, it is
yes,
hard to teach the skills that come with the content.
yes. Um, Peter says, Rochelle, I know you got it, but why are we training our citizens on tech that we do not use in the marketplace?
Which is why it is important and goes right back to the curriculum. Reduce the content in the curriculum and put in things that are more practical and pragmatic for the niche.
Mhm.
So train your students based on, I mean, that is our desire, that's not our reality. That is certainly a desire of many educators, to be able to train our students for the need. And that is why a
Right,
lot of first countries will do well, because they train for a need. there is
right.
there is a need, so you train for that need. And I would have the same question, but I'm afraid I don't have the go ahead or the right answers to say yes, this is it, because it is something that we have to question as educators as well. So I definitely have the same question, Mr. Wright.
Okay, so before we wrap up, because we're going way over, but it is people took a while before they started asking questions, and now the questions are coming in left, right, and center, and comments. But let just tell us a little bit about Care Beyond Reach Academy. Just tell us what you do there, and what is your what you aim to achieve at Reach Academy.
Well, what we currently have right now is a YouTube channel where we post educational content and strategies both for
Is it
educators and.
for a particular age group? Is it for a
It's
particular age
more
group?
it's more secondary. It's more for the secondary, but quite a few. It's primary and secondary, but more so secondary. There are content that eventually will come about for the primary level, but as it relates to classes, we also offer tutoring services, and we offer it in CAPE, IGCSE, and CSEC, math, physics, chemistry, and biology.
And
So
yet, do
those
you
are.
have you? How long have you been around? How long have you
It's
had this?
pretty recent. It's
Oh, it's
pretty recent.
recent.
Yeah, man, very recent. In fact, I had a proposal to do when I was doing my master's in special education, and I was focusing primarily on the gifted students because they tend to get left behind in the system as well. So we have a lot
In
of
what
gifted
in what way?
students,
In what way?
because we they're not adequately and appropriately challenged in the classroom, and so they get bored, and then their behavior becomes a challenge because they're not appropriately challenged academically by the school, or by overall the curriculum is not designed to meet the needs of a gifted learner here. So the proposal focused on preparing a sentence. It was really just a proposal, and
Mhm.
from that proposal I decided that, okay, I'm not able to accomplish this just now, but I will start by doing a YouTube channel, making sure I reach persons, have tutoring services to earn some capital, because the truth is you can't solicit funds unless you know how you're going to make it yourself. So
Right.
so in any business you do, you have to find ways to generate funds for yourself before you can actually get sponsors. So it's just
Right.
really in the baby stages right now, but I really hope to have an actual institution that will cater for the gifted, along with other students that we would consider to be out of the exceptional zone. I don't
Okay.
want
Is there okay? How can they contact you? Do you
okay,
have
I
a website, a YouTube page, whatever?
the website is
Phone
actually
number, email?
on.
Because for those watching, I'm sure they would want to know and to
Yes,
contact you, even to speak about going forward on this virtual learning
that's okay.
situation. Yeah,
So we have a YouTube channel. It's Care Beyond Reach Academy. The email is Care Beyond Reach Academics, plural academics, at gmail.com. And on Instagram, we have our details in terms of phone number, but I can give it to you here as well.
go ahead.
So you can send me an email. You can send me contact information on WhatsApp. So it's 382-4461.
Say it again. 382. Well, for
382
overseas, it's 876 876 382. What's the rest of it?
4461.
4461.
446. Yes.
4461. Yes. That's 876-382-4411. That's correct?
No, 61.
61, sorry.
4461.
4461. My
Yes.
apologies. Okay, so Peter says, Rochelle, it's about deliveries, not exams. As boss lady, she delivers to males only, not just travelers, just quality service. Yes, Peter, big me up.
Right.
Yes, but I like what you're doing. Um, I'm really, you see, because if you cut me, the blood that run out is green, black, and gold. I am Jamaican through and through. Now left y'all will be here until the light turn off. So I'm really about solutions. I really believe that the crime that we're experiencing is because of one, a lack of parenting, two, a lack of education, and three, a lack of will in terms of the whole village, because I'm not going to put it on the government, because the government is a body. The people makes up the country. Yes, we are led, we need a leader, and the leader sets the pace. But also, we need to know what we want as a people and work towards it. And one cocoa full basket. So one person may say, me alone can't do it. But together we can, for sure. And the thing is, as you said from very early, we cannot be selfish. We have to share our knowledge. And that was one of the reasons why I decided to do a Boss Lady Live, because I've realized that many people want information, but one, they're afraid to ask. Two, some of them don't have access where to ask, and and I truly believe that if you have access to the people in the know, you must be able to share knowledge and share the knowledge freely. There's one thing now nobody can take from you is knowledge. Knowledge is yours. When you learn it, you expand, and once you expand, you can't go back. So as a people, knowledge is power. And so teachers, which we have realized now in this whole COVID dispensation, we realize that teachers have been given basket to carry water. So I can truly tell you that a newfound respect is there for teachers. But then either persons are unwilling or unable, many are either unwilling or unable to do what has to be done because of the lack of help, lack of finances, stress keeping up with the job, stress trying not to get COVID, stress through this whole period. So we must come to a decision, because it is a decision. We must come to a decision for ourselves as to what our role will be in this whole shift to virtual learning and adjusting to this new norm, because none of us, unless you have a crystal ball, none of us know when COVID is going to be over, when COVID stop kick, right? As much as we'd like to for it to be over tomorrow, that is going to be unrealistic. So we have to work with the new norm. So going forward, participate. So give us 5 takeaways that you want to say between the parents, the students, and the teachers. Just give us 5 takeaways as to how we can all come together and work with the teachers and the principals and the government and all the stakeholders going forward in this new arena.
So, based on this paradigm shift that we are now in, I would suggest that one, Preparation is everything. You have to prepare. So planning is essential. Communicating that plan with both parents and your students, very important. And of course, the planning stage would take place with your colleagues and administration where necessary. The third thing I will speak about is time management. Very important to organize yourself and plan your time well. The fourth thing I'm going to talk about is getting to know your students, getting to know their interests to navigate this space more effectively from the teacher's perspective. And in knowing how to navigate this space effectively, you can then collaborate with the parents more effectively as well. So it's really planning, organizing yourself, time management, and getting to know your students, collaboration. Those are
And
the
and to the parents,
for the parents, it is staying abreast, keeping up with what is going on. If you are even not there in the days, when you get home from work, find some time to ask how was class, check in on their emotional state as well as their academic state. And where necessary, contact the teacher for support if you need additional support. Or
absolutely.
the school or the teacher, because either way, the message will get across.
Communication is key.
I agree.
Rochelle Harris, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Educator, trainer, passionate teacher. I must say thank you very much for enlightening us as to what is going on, what is taking place, how you're managing, how you're coping, those little nuggets, those little things that maybe, some teachers out there didn't even think about. Because really and truly, your creativity is going to be very important and very necessary at this time. I want to say thank you for joining us. Thanks, Mr. Henry, for introducing me to Rochelle. Excellent choice. Excellent choice. Not that I had any doubt. Folks, thanks again for joining Boss Lady Live. Another interesting, riveting, informative talk. Thanks for your participation. So many questions, so many statements, so much input. Peter, Nadine, Mr. Henry, you as usual, everybody. I just want to say thank you for your input. Everybody who participated, please like, share, subscribe, share it with a friend, share it with somebody who you know is going through so much challenge in getting their children to learn online. This is very important. This is our new norm, people. You know, and it's all about navigating this whole new paradigm shift successfully. So see you again next week, same place, same time, 8 p.m. YouTube Live. That's youtube.com/the totally male, where we're going to have 5 hot, including myself, breast cancer survivors speaking about our journey, various stages of our journey of surviving breast cancer and thriving post our survival. You definitely do not want to miss it. And we'll have the chairman of Reach to Recovery who will be giving us some data as to what is happening in Jamaica re breast cancer and how we can help support our breast cancer survivors, because the mothers are the matriarchs of the family and they run things in the family, right? Whether a man is there, yes or no, rerun things, it go already, right? So same place, same time next week. You don't want to miss it. Lots of info on breast cancer next week. Rochelle, my darling, peace and love, blessings. I wish you every success with your new project, and with your passion, success is evident, and it's a must because you're passionate about it. You don't have to
Thank
worry
you.
about it because your passion speaks for itself. Thank you so much. Have a good
You're
evening. Bye,
welcome.
everybody. next week. God bless. All right. Bye.